free of compulsive thinking. And then you are free to use thinking as a beautiful tool for creating, but you're no longer creating from an egoic neediness. You're creating as an expression of consciousness that creates through you. Whatever it is that you create depends on who you are on the form level as a person. You may have certain abilities or certain things you have learned, and how or what you create depends on that. But that which inspires the creation is the consciousness that then moves through you into a particular channel. And then creativity comes in. Whether you're an artist or even a scientist needs that, or the science is based on rational thinking and analysis, the greatest breakthrough in science came to people, and there are many stories about that. They came to people who suddenly went blank, not really blank, but spacious. Einstein had many moments of spaciousness. And then things suddenly come that could not be arrived at through thinking. Thinking was necessary too, but it didn't. The real breakthrough comes as a revelation, even in science. So, and it transforms your relationships to other humans. And that's a beautiful thing. Even if that's all, if you're not creative in any other area except in all your relationships, to relate with that feeling of benevolence towards others, no matter whether it's your intimate relationships or relationships that happen for a few minutes during the day, all these are important. And so when you're no longer judging a human being, then you can sense a flow of goodwill towards a human. But it presupposes that you are not judging yourself either. So first you have come into your own spaciousness, and then you discover the spaciousness in the other, even if they don't know it yet. When your gaze, in a wider sense, gaze not just the visual gaze, but directing your attention to somebody and going deeper than the surface appearance of that person, which is first of all the physical form of that person. Now, for many people, that's the first thing they notice and the last thing they notice. They only relate to another as a physical form, which they either are not interested in or they want it. I want you. And then beyond the physical form, there's the psychological form of that person, the kind of personality that this person has. So that's the next thing. So level 1 is the physical thing when you meet somebody. Level 2 is the personality of that person, which is also it's a psychological. This is the physical form. The next level down is the psychological form. And if you're stuck on those two levels, you can never truly come to a relationship of true lovingness towards the other, of true goodwill towards the other, of truly sensing something that unites you to the other. There's always that sense of separation because you haven't gone deep enough into the other. Why haven't you gone deep enough into the other? Because you haven't gone deep enough into yourself. It's only if you've gone deep enough into yourself, and by deep enough means into the inner spaciousness in which you're not thinking, no compulsive thinking, an alertness remains. That is, you become suddenly very deep. And then you can look at another human being, no matter what they say or do or how they look, you can then sense their beingness also, but only through yours. And there you meet. When you can sense the human's beingness, even if they can't sense it for themselves, there's a feeling of love, not in a conventional sense, a lovingness towards the other. And that is you recognize the most essential thing of who you are is also in the other. You recognize that oneness. And what is that? It's consciousness. What you love in true love, what you love in the other, is their consciousness. What you love in the dog, although it's lovely to touch a dog, it's lovely to look at the dog or the cat, but what you really love, when you look into the eyes of the dog, is the consciousness of the dog. The beingness looks back at you, and you look into the eyes, and unobstructed by thinking in the dog. And for a moment, the dog frees you from your own thinking. People don't know that that's what happens. And that's why they love dogs, because for a moment, you look at a dog and there are always a few moments when you're not, unless you're so burdened that you can't even be present with your dog. For a moment, the dog frees you off and you go, you feel yourself more fully, because there's a being who is one with itself and is not imposing anything. So there's the shared beingness or consciousness you suddenly sense. And this shared consciousness, to realize the shared consciousness, is love in the true sense. And the same could happen even with a tree, when you truly acknowledge the beingness of the tree from your inner, so that you look at it without imposing judgment or interpretation on it. It does not mean that you can never say anything about the tree. It means, for example, there are two ways of knowing the tree or anything, or knowing a human being, of knowing anything. There are two ways of knowing, even yourself. One is through thinking and concepts. So I can know you by knowing many things about you and your past and what happened to you and your background, and so all these things I know about you. But there is a more fundamental and more essential way of knowing. I can know you as consciousness rather than as the form that you are. I can know the tree by looking at it, giving it my fullest attention, and just the awareness for the sense perception. And I'm looking at that tree and I can suddenly sense its aliveness, its stillness, its beingness. I can sense that. Sensing that means I'm connecting with it, and connecting means the connection has always been there, but now you notice it, you connect with the tree, and you love it. It does not mean that in some other moment, when a child wants to know what the name of this tree is, because there is a time when a child asks about names and concepts, you're not going to refuse and say, I'm not going to tell you what the name, because I don't want you to get trapped in concepts. You have to encourage the child not to lose the deeper knowing when you give the name. So you tell, this is an oak tree, or better, you tell the child, we call it an oak tree, because it isn't an oak tree, we call it an oak tree. And then encourage the child to look, to continue to perceive it, touch it. If there's something to smell it, listen to the leaves, listen, look, touch, interact, give it your attention, so that the child is not trapped in a world of concepts, as is the destiny of many children these days at an early age, get completely absorbed by concepts. And before you know it, at a fairly early age, they are lost in their minds. Unhappy a lot of the time. What's the next thing that I can think of that I need? we'll talk about that. So if you discover within yourself that a lot of the time you're in a state of lack, of insufficiency, of not enough, and you feel that the answer to, the remedy is to be active in this world and achieve and do as much as possible, then you'll probably find that ultimately that is not the answer to your state of lack. In order to transcend, to go beyond your state of lack, of neediness, of not enough, spiritual practice and spiritual realization is necessary. Focus on the realization of being. It's only there that you can go beyond that state of lack, which is ego. Go within and discover who or what you are beyond the person.